Welcome, everybody. I am here to talk about the ever-growing topic of narcissism for the benefit of others who, like myself, experience this sort of hell on earth, and also for the benefit of my own healing, to voice it out loud and to come to a deeper awareness of what we are dealing with. Now, if this place you have found, it's like my personal front door, can possibly offer you somewhere to come and hang out to see if there's a benefit for you here, and introduce myself, then welcome, subscribe if you want. I have over 40 years of lived experience of relational narcissistic abuse, including overt and insidious covert and communal narcissistic abuse within family and church systems, with my parents, plenty of romantic relationships and close friendships. Basically, everywhere where personal support and safety was supposed to be found are the places and people that broke me. Now years of personal study, trauma-informed personal therapy for years, and my background as a former certified trauma recovery coach. I am here to let the truth hit the air and to see how my personal area of competency can be included in the sea of other voices teaching about narcissism awareness, as well as how we are to individuate, heal, acknowledge the truth, get out of denial, and to get to know ourselves away from this toxicity and to have our own identity and life to enjoy. And I am not here to claim that I have all the answers. I don't. But I do believe I've got some valuable insight to share with what I have been through and experienced, what I have learned and continue to learn alongside others like myself. And I believe I have very valuable education gained. I have resources I have found helpful. And hopefully through the process of finding words to experiences that many survivors have struggled to explain, myself included. So my silence protected other people's reputation while it ruined mine. And basically I'm here to prepare for my own documentary in a way. So if you're looking for validation, honest conversations, and not just about them, but about ourselves, and hope that life could be different, I hope you'll find a educational, welcoming place here, and that you're not alone, that healing is possible, that life can be different. And one conversation at a time, we can keep moving toward a life of freedom, allowance of feelings, clarity, peace, and know that with change comes changes in our lives. That is a very uncomfortable process, but it's worth it. And now I have found pattern recognition, for instance, to be very helpful. Because once you can recognize a pattern, you can begin making different choices. And with pattern recognition, with narcissistic people, to be able to recognize them and to move differently as to not get stuck in that spider web is vital. It's vital to know how an enemy works, like a playbook. And I will definitely be covering this topic of pattern recognition because it really is like they have quite the predictable playbook that they share, even if they present differently, covert and overt in their different manifestations. However, we cannot put all our focus on them, like an obsession, becoming experts on narcissists instead of ourselves. And I get it because I did it too, because it seems so outrageous. How can this be real? I have to figure this out. But it goes deeper than psychology and emotional issues. And then it ends up consuming my life and my mind. It's like this internal feeling of what the literal hell is this, and needing to figure it out. I can't let this consume me anymore. There has to be a balance. And just like all of us have poured into them, giving, but not pouring into ourselves. And I remember reading a Pete Walker book, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving, which is an excellent read. It does take some fortitude to read it, but I found it to be worth it. He wrote in that book, the price of an admission to a relationship with a narcissist is self-annihilation. And I think a lot about that statement. We have a self of our own, a life of our own, but to them we don't really exist. We are just here for their benefit, like an appliance to use until we're useless to them or they're bored and want to play with another toy. I mean, it's like we're not like really a human being to them. We don't even know who we are with them. And by the time they're done with us, we're like a shell of ourselves. And I believe fully now at 45 years old that my life has immense value. And I want the devil out of my life. These narcissists that bring hell with them. If you know, you know. And as many channels continue to revolve around the narcissist and how they think, and to a degree, it does help us. And I'm definitely going to talk about it. However, we have to come to an understanding that eventually it's vital we shift our focus to balance both sides. Usually, what I find when I study this a lot is that the audience is becoming more and more experts on narcissists instead of themselves. Again, here's the point of the Pete Walker quote. It's like, we're still not there. Everything's still all about them, about outside of us. So we have a self. And I'm tired of letting everything still revolve around them. I have a life. And this is enough already of my life being consumed by them. So I'm putting focus back on myself, on my valuable life. I think about how much this has consumed me. And how long am I going to tolerate them still consuming my mind to learn about them 24/7? Again, I get it because it consumed me for so long. I desperately needed to understand what was happening to me, as if there is a logical answer for something that seems to come from the realm of hell. So I'm going to get busy living my life. And this has taken decades to get my renewed mindset to this point. And so my purpose is part of that. My new identity is part of that. So I'm just coming out of a time of my family, that narcissistic family system. That has by far hit me the hardest outside of any church, outside of any romantic relationship or friend. And, I've been hit several times. That being said, coming out of the family system for me has been the most difficult. So what I'm going to be talking about basically is exploring purpose, talking about identity, and that I will be discussing spiritual abuse. And I want to offer my service and time, especially in this area, and in the area of the avenues of narcissistic abuse in these close relationships. Especially topics like religious manipulation, spiritual gaslighting, scripture used as control, narcissistic systems, not just family systems, but church systems. And mine was that combination because my parents were the leaders of the church in different cities, even extending outside of America. Forgiveness and scripture weaponized for control and to avoid accountability. Narcissistic pastors and leaders. Abuse of power, producing fear, leading people to stay silent out of punishment in one way or another. Facing rejection, scapegoating, being taking away benefits from what the church gives them, narcissistic parents hiding behind religion, the isolation of being the black sheep in these systems. I feel this deserves thoughtful conversations. I've lived it for many decades. So I want my experience to be able to serve others and the church well, whoever can benefit from it. I'm also going to talk about lifelong conditioning, because many can focus on, the abusive partner. But why did I choose this person? Why do I keep choosing people like this? Why does it feel so familiar? How did my childhood prepare me for this? How did my family, and get this is very important. Excuse me. How did my family normalize emotional neglect? That's a big key here, emotional neglect, and I'll get more into that. But it's not to be underestimated in its damaging effects, that not all abuse is physical bruises. So also, I'm going to connect some dots here. Many treat these topics separately, and to a degree, I'll do the same. But also, I'm going to connect the dots with, red flags early in relationships, love bombing, gaslighting, trauma bonding, silent treatments, flying monkeys, smear campaigns, no contact, low contact, healing after abuse, why victims stay, self-worth and boundaries, emotional regulation, nervous system regulation, childhood wounds, developmental trauma, recovering from narcissistic parents, dating after abuse. And so these things are helpful to become aware of, but also we need to ask, how does an entire narcissistic family system create an adult who repeatedly ends up in manipulating relationships one way or another? And also to say, I have been challenged with, I have challenged a victim identity, and I will continue to challenge it. It's really important to understand, validate, and know what I've been through, and to have a lot of grace for myself and others who have gone through things like this. And to be validated, to be sat with in my pain, to be listened to be believed. It's been immensely valuable in my healing. But also, I will say, I notice a pattern that many coaches and teachers unintentionally keep viewers in an endless cycle of consuming abuse content. And I believe healthy recovery eventually will ask, how do I stop making narcissism the center of my identity? Who am I outside of them? And how has this affected me? And lots of questions that I'll cover. Like, can I trust myself again? Gaslighting myself, was that really abuse? Why did nobody believe me? Why do I keep attracting these people? Why do I feel guilty for leaving? Why can't I stop thinking about them? Why do I feel invisible? Why do I feel the need to become a rescuer? And this one is a big one. Who am I without constantly trying to earn love? That's a big one right there. And also seeking and speaking honestly about recognizing and healing my own unhealthy patterns. Because healing does require eventually self-awareness and a willingness to grow. It's a balance. And to say that our voice matters. For a long time, I did not have a voice. I would find words to what I was experiencing in the testimonies of others' experiences. My voice was so suppressed, so shamed, so silenced. And now I feel finally confidently empowered to use my voice now, where silence no longer wins. It's never served me well, and it's been a huge area that has tried to defeat me. So this channel, speaking, this is going to be a big source of healing for me and hopefully for others. I'm going to cover covert narcissism, religious abuse, emotionally unavailable parents and partners, codependency, attachment styles, and becoming more secure in the relationship with ourselves, and the importance of a regulated nervous system, and becoming confident in identity. Now, rather than building a channel that is primarily about narcissists, I will build one with a balance that also covers more about recovering our identity after a lifetime of manipulation and what has felt like crazy-making behavior. And so exploring questions like, what if your biggest problem was never low self-esteem, but never being allowed to have a self? Again, that quote from Pete Walker, the price of admission to a relationship with a narcissist is self-annihilation. And growing up in religious homes where obedience was rewarded more than authenticity, why people-pleasing feels like survival, when forgiveness becomes another form of self-abandonment, abandonment, rejection wounds, and when healing isn't learning more about narcissists, it's finally learning more about ourselves. And I feel this approach will shift the focus from over-analyzing all these abusers to help any listener to know that there is a real possibility of reclaiming their own life and to create enduring content with a longer lifespan that we can continue growing instead of only returning when we are in a crisis. And to move an audience with awareness and validation, these are the things that happened to me, to eventually a place of transformation, and this is who I'm becoming. And how can this serve with a more enduring impact? I will also offer you education for narcissistic abuse, awareness, patterns, explaining concepts like why they breadcrumb, why they ghost, why they triangulate. I'll offer you validation that you're not crazy. These things really happened. I've seen, experienced, and heard a lot. So it's not going to sound crazy to me. And, people recovering from narcissistic abuse often spend years questioning their own memory. So validation and feeling less alone is incredibly powerful. I will help name behaviors. I'll help you identify patterns, like instead of my partner ignores me, neglects, and or abuses me, and treats me like I don't matter after seeming to be the love of my life. Well, I can tell you that that's intermittent reinforcement, for example, for the purpose to create a chemical addiction in your brain to keep you from leaving. It will be like a literal addiction. And to tell you that hope is stronger than fear, to keep you there so you don't leave, even when you know it's wrong. And I'll cover things like this more in depth. I'll offer some storytelling, sometimes of my own personal experiences, sometimes of anonymous stories that I've heard or been told. Stories are much more memorable than just explanations you'll get in a study book. I'll offer some psychology, and I'll give the disclaimer, I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. I was a former coach, certified a few years ago. I have not renewed my certification. I have what I need. I don't feel like I have to be certified to be qualified to talk about these things. So basically, I'm just going to talk about what I have learned in my own experiences through therapy, through my own studies, to encourage you to study and learn. When it comes to narcissistic abuse, with attachment theories, nervous system, the necessity of having a regulated nervous system, complex PTSD, developmental trauma, personality disorders, trauma responses. Again, these things do require personal time with a therapist, with somebody who you feel safe with, who's qualified. I'm more of a telling you, here's what I've learned, here's what I know about it. I'm not here to diagnose. I'm not here to give any kind of cure or anything like that. I'm just here to offer my voice as support and as an encouragement to go learn more about these things for yourself and seek out qualified professionals, and then people like me who can offer a sense of support, validation, and to point you in certain directions. And also, we've got to talk about boundaries. I didn't even know the term boundaries until I was in my 30s. Mine were so bulldozed. They did not exist in my home. So boundaries come in very helpful to identify narcissists pretty early. Boundaries, the word no, and tell them if they did something to hurt you are 3 really good tests to see if somebody is narcissistic or not. But anyway, learning what boundaries are, to take control of yourself, because basically what they want to do is control you. And so when you give a boundary, it's for control of yourself, not of them. We cannot control them. That's not the point of boundaries. I will say that they won't tell you this, but when you take away their control over you and you control what you do, they're going to be furious. It needs to be done wisely. But they will also start to respect your power. They respect power. Because when you're, playing nice and obeying and being subservient to them, thinking you're being a good person, in their minds they do think you're pathetic for it. And there's no other way to say it. and so boundaries are about what you tolerate and how you're going to respond. And some of these people can retaliate in very cruel and nasty ways. So it needs to be done with wisdom and seek some counsel about it. But boundaries are necessary, and you need to have a backup plan in place for any point of retaliation, depending on your level of closeness with this person and what kind of access they have to your life or your work, or your, social circles, So, the focus has to be turned back to ourselves here, our life, protecting our peace like Fort Knox, like our life depends on it. It's not our job in the least to change them. And it's impossible and toxic, actually, to think that we have the power to fix or save a damaged person. As if our love will cure them. That's not true at all. So, focus needs to go where it needs to go, back onto ourselves. But we get here. It's a long process. I'm not pretending that any of this is supposed to happen overnight. It has taken me several years. A lot of pain, very difficult process. And, I do believe that we are supposed to enjoy this life we are given, not just to endure suffering forever or to be repeating patterns time and time and time again of finding ourselves in the same relationships, just in different bodies. These same toxic patterns with our family that just seems unending, and it's always going to be this way. We don't have to stay in toxic, never-ending patterns and cycles. That's something else I'll speak on. The dangers of enduring narcissism. I remember hearing a conversation once that went this way. A girl asked, "How much disrespect can I take until I cut off a friend or family member?" And the answer was given her, "How much poison do you take till you die?" And that's what enduring this abuse long-term will do. It literally kills you slowly, the entirety of your being, your mind, your personal will, your emotions, your identity, your hope, your physical health and sickness, your finances, your work, vitality of life. And you just end up becoming a shell of a human being. And for some, a literal killing comes more quickly depending on the severity. So, let me tell you that unnecessary martyrdom for someone who would and will leave you for dead is not worth it. And that they will try to reel you in again using hope. Because I remember a statement from the movie, I think it was The Hunger Games, that said, "Hope is stronger than fear." I can remember being in different comment sections for so many years. As many of you, we all go into different channels to learn, to talk to each other. And I remember in one of the comment sections, a comment that said, "My therapist once told me this is not your secret to keep. That it was then I realized by not telling anyone, I was actually protecting those monsters that ripped my life apart. That this is not my secret to keep. I felt responsible, so I considered it my secret and my burden. And so I am here to release the burden. And I'm not going to keep all this inside. I've done my fair share with speaking with others personally and in therapy, but I've not done it on an online platform. So thank you for bearing with me through my introduction. And I'm going to show my face. I'm going to speak with you personally about these different topics. I just wanted to give an introduction and an open door to my channel. And I also want to say, I am not unaware that in the comment section, a tactic of narcissists will be to go into the comment section and act like one of the survivors, one of the people who have endured these just horrific, terrible things. And they're going to come in there, they're going to act like victims. They know the language, they know how to sound, and it's almost like sharks going in to swim for their prey. I'm going to come act like you. Then you're going to trust me. It's so typical. So please don't think I'm not aware of such tactics for any of you who try to do that in the in the future. I'll talk about that too. And to let other people know when you're in the comment section, to clearly know that that happens. And so to be careful with who's in the comment section, who you're talking to or private messaging with, because I've encountered that too. There's plenty I have to talk about. And when it comes to gaslighting and denial and what we are willing to believe about certain people, what we don't want to see, what we don't want to acknowledge exists, denial is very powerful, and truth is more powerful. Truth really does set you free. So I remember there was this woman, her name's April Dawn Harder. She had an Instagram page called Narcissism Rehab, and she made a statement that's very true. It says, denial of your condition will set you back for a long time. But once you're out of denial, then you are far more likely to get help. And so, that being said, we're here to talk about the truth. The truth really will set you free. And again, I'm not pretending this is an overnight process. It's taken so many years for me. And so, these are the things I'm going to talk about. And I'm going to heal out loud. Break the silence. That's the first thing I'll talk about.